All right, today I'm going to go over the post-test study guide. So part one is going to start number one, and then we'll see how many I can get. I'm thinking there's going to be 2 or 3 videos. It might move pretty quick. I think I'll get at least through 20 or 30 problems in this video. All right, so number one. Now, guys, remember, when you take your post-test, you're going to get a guaranteed point just for trying. All right, if you try the problem, you're going to get a point. You're going to get another point for starting the part correctly or using the hint. So I would recommend making sure you understand this hint page. If you have any questions, please ask. If you need to rewrite a hint, because some of that's kind of hard to read, and I'll have it on the board when you're taking the post test as well. But I just wanted you to have a physical copy of the hint page so you can get used to looking at it. All right. So we're going to start number one. Number one's real simple. Says if you were gonna measure your paper, what would you measure it in? Well, I think most of us would think inches. Remember, I said metric here. So if I say metric, that means you have to think what are inches? Kind of like centimeters. That's the metric version of inches. So centimeters. Mass. If I was gonna weigh my geometry textbook, you're probably thinking pounds right away, and pounds is kind of like kilograms. So kilograms is the metric version of pounds. That's it. All right, complete each sentence. You must show at least one step of work. So I have 240 inches, and then I'm going to multiply it by the ratio. I know the ratio is 1 foot is 12 inches. I'm going to put feet on top because I'm going to end in. I always look. Whatever I end in goes on top. Whatever I start with goes on bottom. So 1 foot is 12 inches. That's a fancy way to say 1. Since 12 is on the bottom, I'm going to divide. 240 divided by 12 is going to be 20 feet. There's my label. 64 fluid ounces. So I'm going to write 64 fluid ounces. All right. I'm going to multiply by how many cups are in. I have 1 cup for every 8 fluid ounces. And just the reason you want cups on top and fluid ounces on bottom is because you want the fluid ounces to cancel. So then, since 8's on the bottom, you divide. So you do 64 divided by 8. You end up with 8 cups. That's it. 22.5 is how many kilograms? So I have 22.5 times, forgot my label. 22.5 pounds times, I'm going to have let's check our hint page in case you're not sure. So look at my hint page, and I see that 1 pound is 2.2 kilograms. And that's not correct. This should say 1 kilogram equals 2.2 pounds. I can't believe nobody caught that. I'm crazy when I wrote that down. Alrighty, so 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. So 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. I can't believe I messed that up. I did fix it, and I will make sure everybody knows. So 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. So I'm going to do 22.5 divided by 2.2. Now I'm going to end up with 10.22 kilograms. 16 liters. I'm going to multiply by 1 liter is 2.1. pints. So I'm going to do 16 divided by 2.1. Let's make sure I wrote that one down right. Yeah, I did. Okay. So 1 liter is 2.2 pints, or 2.1 pints. So I'm going to do, and see how these don't cancel? That means I didn't write it correctly. So I have to kind of change it and put 2.1 pints on top and 1 liter on bottom. And I caught that because the L's didn't cancel. So I do 16 times 2. I end up with 32 double check. I end up with 33.6 pints. And that's it. Remember, with probability, you put what's the actual all over the total. So for a die, the total amount of choices is equal to 6. So I know it's going to be over 6. Now less than 4, there's actually 1, 2, and 3 less than 4, which is 3. So I either write that as 1/2, or you can write that as 50%. So the probability of less than 4 is equal to 3 over 6, which is 1/2 or 50%. 1 over 6, that's 1 or 6 is 2 choices out of 6, which is 1/3 or 33.33%. So, number 5, I need to find the total first. The total's going to be the same for both of them, so I add 65 and 27, 30 and 18. I end up getting 140. So I know the total for both of these is going to be 140. Now, penny or a quarter, so I do 65 or a quarter plus 18, that's going to give me 83. Now, to find your percent, because that can't be simplified, you're going to do the top divided by the bottom and multiply by 100. I end up with 59.29%. Now, not a quarter, so I add the pennies, the nickels, and the dimes. So I get 95 plus 27. You get 122. Or you could also do 140 minus 18. I do 122 divided by 140, I get 0.87. I multiply by 100 to get 87.14%. All right. Number 6 talks about experimental probability and theoretical probability. Experimental probability is what actually happened. Theoretical probability is what should have happened, right, based on our statistics. So like the experimental probability, I add up all these numbers together, I get 25. And I say there was 7 3s. So I do 7 over 25, which is going to be 28%. Now the theoretical probability of getting a 3 is 1 over 6, which if you do that, you get 16.67%. So how does it compare? The experimental probability outperformed by 12%, about 12%. Pretty good. 7, you're just plugging it in. So wherever I see an A, I'm going to put -2 in parentheses. Wherever I see a B, I'm going to put 3. And wherever I see a C, I'm going to put 1. So I'm going to rewrite this 3 over 3. 3 times 3 all over 5 times -2 plus 1. Now remember, you have to do the top and bottom separately. So I do 3 times 3 all by itself, I get 9. I do 5 times -2, which is -10, plus 1 to get -9. So my answer is -1. 24, I'm going to put -4 in for D. So I have 24 plus the absolute value of -4 minus 4. You have to do inside the bar first. So you have to do that first. I get 24 plus the absolute value of -8. Remember, absolute value makes the negative go away, so it becomes 24 plus 8, which is 32. And that's it for 7. 8 is going to use PEMDAS in reverse, so the first thing I do is I have to put all the letters on the same side. So I put my C's together. I end up with -14 equals 6C minus 8. Now I'm going to use PEMDAS in reverse. And there is subtraction. That's why I add 8 to both sides. Alright, so I end up with -6 equals 6C. There's no addition, there's no division. There is multiplication, so I divide by 6. I end up with C equals -1. You could even check your answer if you want. For B, I'm going to do PEMDAS in reverse again. You could, if you want, distribute the -5. That's an option. I'm not going to, because I know that I'm going to get rid of this -5 first. And I'm going to have B minus 3 equals +6. I add 3 to both sides, I get B equals 9. Either way, you'll get 9. So if you distribute the -5, you're going to get 9 as well. Alright, that's it. For 9 and 10, I'm going to be using substitution. So if you look on your hint page, 9 and 10 are going to be right here. First, you got to pick a variable to get by itself. There's already a variable by itself, y. So I'm going to put 4 in for y. So I'm going to rewrite this problem as negative 4x minus 5 times 4 equals 20. I get negative 4x minus 20 equals 20. Now it's just append as a reverse problem. I get rid of the subtraction by addition. I get negative 4x equals 40. I divide by negative 4 now on both sides. I get x equals negative 10. Now I'm going to take that negative 10, and actually I don't have to do anything because I already know y is equal to 4. So my final answer is I'm going to make it an ordered pair, negative 10, 4. That's my answer. Alright, so 10 is the same exact concept. I'm going to look for a letter that's already by itself. X is already by itself, so that means I'm going to put 4 plus 3 in for x. So I'm going to rewrite this 7. Instead of x, I'm going to write 4y plus 3. That's the substitution part. Plus 2y equals negative 9. I distribute the 7 to both sides. I get 28y plus 21 plus 2y equals negative 9. I combine my like terms, and I end up with 30y plus 21 equals negative 9. I subtract 21 from both sides. I get 30y equals negative 30, so y equals negative 1. Now I'm going to plug negative 1 in for x, so I'm going to say x equals 4 times negative 1 plus 3. I end up with x equals negative 4 plus 3. I get x equals negative 1. I have an x, I have a y. So my final answer is going to be negative 1, negative 1. Elimination's a little easier. So remember, I'm going to make sure everything's lined up, which it is. And then I'm going to hope that I have matching numbers with opposite signs for one of the letters. And I do for these y's. So I'm going to add. I add 5x and 2x to get 7x, 3y and negative 3y, cancel out to get nothing. And I add negative 16 and plus 9 to get negative 7. I divide by 7 on both sides, x equals negative 1. Worked pretty good. Now I'm going to put negative 1 in for x right here. I get negative 2 minus 3y equals 9. I add 2 to both sides. Negative 3y equals 11. Y equals negative 11 over 3. That's okay. You could give me a decimal approximation. You could write negative 3 and 2/3 for all I care. So your final answer is going to be negative 1 for x, negative 11/3 for y. And that's it. 12 is harder because although everything's lined up, I don't have any of the x's or y's match. So I have to figure out a way to do that. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to pick. I'm going to say, I'm going to make the x's go away. So the easiest way to do it is you could either find the greatest common denominator, least common multiple. So the multiples of 6 are 6, 12, 18, go on. Or the multiples of 9 are 9 and 18. And look, 18 is the least common multiple. So I'm going to multiply the top by 2. I'm going to multiply the bottom by 3. Because I want to turn this into negative 18. I want to turn that into positive 18. So when I multiply this by 2, I have to multiply all 3 of them by 2. So I end up with 18x, because I did 9 times 2, plus 24y, plus 87 times 2 is 174. Now I'm going to multiply the bottom by 3. So I'll multiply this guy by 3, this guy by 3, this guy by 3. Why 3? Because I want this to turn into negative 18x, and it does. And I get negative 15y, and then I do 3 times negative 43 is minus 129. Now I add vertically. The x's cancel. 24y minus 15y is 9y. And I do 174 minus 29 is 45. So then y, I divide by 9 on both sides, is equal to 5. I'm going to use the bottom one. I'm going to say negative 6x minus 5. Instead of 5, I'm going to put y equals negative 43. I get minus 6x minus 25 equals negative 43. I add 25 to both sides using PEMDAS in reverse. I get minus 6x equals negative 18. I divide by negative 6, I get x equals 3. So I have an x, I have a y, that means I have an ordered pair. 3, 5 is my solution. There are 2 other ways to do this. If you did it one of those 2 ways, as long as you got 3, 5 as your ordered pair, you're good to go. Alright, so number 13 says use the figure to the right. Name the line that contains points Q and R. So here's Q, here's R. That's line A. Remember, they use a small script, so I just say line A. That's it. 2 points that are coplanar. So coplanar is on the same surface with W. So I'm gonna get rid of that blue so you don't get confused. So now we're going to have W, X, and Y. So on the same surface, I see Q and Z, so I'm just going to put Q and Z. Capital letters with no regular capital letters are always points. Give another name for plane WQY. Well, I could say plane P. That's like a uppercase script. If you don't like that, because you don't like that script writing, you could just say plane, and any 3 points, not W, Q, or Y. I could say WZQ. I could say plane XQY. They can't be linear, right? That's the only thing. But all those work pretty well. The intersections of line B and C, point Q. That's it. Alright, find the value of the variable and xp if x is between p and q. So I'm going to make a line. I have p, I have q, I have x somewhere in here. I don't know exactly where it's at, but it's in between. So xq is 26, xp is 10x minus 6. The whole thing is 80. So I get to say this plus this equals 80. So I say 10x minus 6 plus 26 equals 80. I get 10x plus 20 equals 80. I subtract 20, I get 10x equals 60. So x equals 6. So if x is 6, I'm going to plug in 6 right there. 10 times 6 is 60 minus 6. So xp equals 54. And that's it for 14. So I'm going to do the same thing for B. I have P, I have Q, put X in the middle. So I have XQ is 3y plus 1. XP is 5y plus 37. And the whole thing is 75. So I do 5y plus 37 plus 3y plus 1 equals 75. I get 8y plus 38 equals 75. I subtract 38 from both sides. I end up with 8y equals 37. I divide by 8 on both sides. I get y equals 4.625. Now I'm going to plug that in for y right here. So I'm going to have 5 times 4.625 plus 37. I'm going to end with 60.125. And that's XP. And that's it for 14. 15, use the figures to the right. Are CB and CD congruent? CB and CD congruent? Yes, they have congruency symbols. We're going to say AB is congruent to AD. Are XY and XZ congruent? Well, if A is 2, so I have 8 here. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2, that's 8. So, yes, the measurement, or I'm going to say XY equals 8, and YZ equals 8. So, they're congruent. Alright, 20, we're going to find the distance. Remember, distance is going to be the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And then midpoint. So midpoint's going to be, you average the x's, so x1 plus x2 all over 2. And then y1 plus y2 all over 2. And make sure you do the top all by itself and before you divide by 2. So we're going to do the distance first. So that's x1, that's y1. This is x2, that's y2. So I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to have negative 7 minus 3 squared plus negative 13 minus 1 squared. I get the square root of negative 10 squared plus negative 14 squared. 10 squared is 100. That's 196. So it equals to, so AB is going to be the square root of 296, which is 17.2. Now the midpoint, I'm going to plug x1, so I'm going to do 3 plus negative 7 all over 2, and 1 plus negative 13 all over 2. Make sure you do the top all by itself first. Do the top. Do 3 plus negative 7 to get negative 4, then divide by 2. Do 1 plus negative 13 to get negative 12, then divide by 2. Because your midpoint for M should be negative 2, negative 6. And that's it for 16. Alright, 17. Find the variable and missing measure if M is a midpoint of FG. So I'm going to draw FG just so everybody's, on the same page. F and G. I'm going to put M in the middle, which means this guy's going to go to this guy. I have 3x plus 4. I have 5x minus 26. I don't know the whole thing. I do know this and this are congruent. So I say 3x plus 4 equals 5x minus 26. I move the 3x over, so I get 4 equals 2x. I add 26 to both sides. I get 30 equals 2x. So x equals 15. I just used PEMDAS in reverse. If that was too fast, let me know. Now I plug in 15 for x, so 3 times 15 is 45 plus 4, so I get Fm is equal to 49. Mg, I do 5 times 15 to get 75, minus 26 is 49, so Mg equals 49. Not only am I using it to add it up, I just did a double check to make sure those are in fact congruent, which they are. 49 and 49, so Fg equals 98. That's it for 17. Alright, so use the figure to the right, find the vertex, and rename the angle. So angle 9, the vertex is G. So here's angle 9. So here's angle 9. There's the vertex, so the vertex is G. I'm going to rename it as angle FGH. Alright, now I'm going to do angle 4. Angle 4 is right here, so that means the vertex is D. I'm going to say CDG. So the vertex is D, angle CDG. Remember, the vertex is always in the middle when you write an angle. angle 3. So here's angle 3. The vertex is C, D, C, G. So C, angle D, C, G. Notice angle 3 and 4 are two different angles even though they use the exact same letters because the vertex is different. Alright, that's important. Now I'm going to do angle 5. So angle 5 is over here. That means the vertex is D. So the vertex is D. EDG is the angle. So notice, angle 4 and angle 5 are the same vertex, but they're different angles because they have different points. Alright? And that's it for 18. Alright, so I'm telling you this is 22. Vertical angle is telling me that's 22. Because this is perpendicular, I know this is perpendicular, which means this is perpendicular, which means this right here, this angle right here has to be made by taking 90 minus 22, which is 68 degrees. Alright? So RXF. So I'm going to clear all the drawings. Except I'm going to say RXF. So we know this is 90, and we know this is 68 from the math we just talked about. Put them together. So the measure of angle RXF equals 158 degrees, which makes that obtuse. So that's good. Now I'm going to do AXE. So AXE, that's 90 degrees. So I'm going to say the measurement of angle AXE equals 90 degrees, which makes it right. Angle C is FX. Angle C is FXD, or number C is FXD. So FXD. Remember, this is 90. This is 22. So the measurement of angle FXD has to be 112 degrees. Let me make that a little better. Which makes that obtuse. FXE is just right there. So that's going to be the measurement of angle FXE has to be equal to 22 degrees, which makes it acute. Notice, every one of my angle measures has an M and has the degree symbol. Alright? That's it for 19. 20. Use the figure above. Question 19. To answer the following, name a pair of non-adjacent supplementary angles. So they're non-adjacent. That means they're not, non-adjacent means not next to each other. Supplementary means they have to equal 180. So that angle and that angle are congruent. 90 and 90 equals 180. So I'm going to say angle AXR and angle EXD. And that's it for 20. Name a pair of obtuse vertical angles. That one's a little bit tougher. So they have to be vertical, means they're across the street. So I'm going to pick this guy right here. And I say, what's right across from him? And maybe, hold on, maybe I don't like the one I just picked. Right here is a good one, right here. I'm going to pick angle FXE, and then angle AXC. And that's it. Alright, so since 62 and this angle right here are a linear pair, I do 180 minus 62 to find out that's 180 degrees. Because they're vertical angles, they're congruent, so I say 5x plus 2 equals 62. I subtract 2 from both sides, I get 5x equals 60, so x equals 12. That's it for 21. Alright, so since this is perpendicular, I have to add these two angles together to get 90. I get 7x plus 6 equals 90. I subtract 6 from both sides, I get 7x equals 84. So then I get x equals 12. Now I got to plug 12 in to get my two angles. And they're 40 degrees and 50 degrees. And that's it. We got the 22 on your study guide.